Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Fantasy Pros Football Podcast. I'm Ryan Wormeli, joined as I am every Thursday by Pat Fitzmaurice and by Jake Ceily from The Athletic. We are into the fantasy playoffs, guys. We have made it just 3 weeks left for pretty much every league out there. We are here into the first round of the postseason. Quick reminder just for everybody, all of our 2025 consensus rankings and tiers can be found at fantasypros.com/rankings. Fitz, how is your, I hate to use the word portfolio, but your portfolio looking, throughout this year? How many leagues were you in that you made the playoffs in? How many buys did you get? What's your kind of overall landscape looking like going into the playoffs here?
Yeah, so I have what I consider to be 5 home leagues, and I was a perfect 5 for 5 in those and have 4 buys in the home league. So that was really good.
Nice.
And then in the analyst leagues, it's more of a representative sample where I've made the playoffs in probably 40 to 50%. And and I'm playing in an annoying number of consolation brackets. The leagues where you don't make it, it seems like I'm in way too many leagues that have consolation brackets, and I think they're completely stupid. How do you guys feel about that?
Very anti.
It's a relic from a time when people had typically one fantasy team, and we got to make sure people get their fill and play 16 or 17 weeks. I don't care, man. Maybe 10% of my teams that don't make the playoffs, I want to keep playing and, feel like I was jobbed and want to beat up on people a few more weeks. But most of the time it's just put me out of my misery, man. I don't want to keep setting this lineup with this roster.
If it's Dynasty related, it has to do with how you do rookie picks. It wouldn't be the way I did it, but I'm more okay with that. But yeah, a regular redraft league, I'm I do. I'm in so many other leagues. Let me just focus on the ones that actually matter at this point. So I'm with you. I made the playoffs in, I think it was 11 out of my 14 leagues, and I had 4 buys. It was one of my stronger years in a while. That's a higher percentage, obviously, than I would usually get, but it was a strong year on my end. And ironically, one of the 3 leagues I did not make the playoffs in, I think it was the 3rd most points scored that year out of 12 teams, and I just had horrible luck and did not make the postseason. So that one was frustrating to not get there. What about you, Jake?
Yeah, I would say 50-ish%. I'm trying I was looking off the top of my head. I was too busy looking up the fact that Fitz needs to chase down Matthew Berry in Best Ball, the Flex League. He's back by 120. Fitz is always in contention in that one. That one, I'm third to last. I started that draft, by the way, this is Industry League with Fitz in it. I started that draft, Omarion St. Brown, Brian Thomas, Terry McLaurin, Kenneth Walker. And coming out, I don't even care what the rest of the draft was. I was like, man, this is going to be great. No, I'm third to last. They could not have gone worse. But the one, my home league, I have a bye. Most of my home leagues, I'm with you guys on the whole situation. If you're looking at consolation, I get it. And then people want to give out worst place or penalties or whatever it might be. That just make that off the regular season, because I don't get the consolation bracket. So if you win it, you get the penalty, and then you try to lose it to win it, the only loser. It's kind of convoluted. So just last place in the regular season, which, by the way, I'll say the most frustrating one, I'll give you guys this, and everybody can skip past this and be like, I don't care about your leagues, because nobody cares about our leagues. The stack leagues, which is an industry one that was for charity. The worst luck you've ever seen. I traded for Travis Hunter the week that he went on the IR for the rest of the year. I traded for Garrett Wilson and Nico Collins the weeks both of them got hurt. Wilson gone for the year. Nico Collins gone with the concussion. Fortunately, he came back. But that's just a small sample. My luck was so bad they donated to my charity. They're like, you know what? We're just giving to, and I fought my blank off, and I finished basically a tie break out of the playoffs, and I was so frustrated. Wow. I missed the playoffs, but it's the one that I'm the most proud in because I should have been in last place.
I know people will skip past this, which is totally fine, but I do think it's nice to have a little accountability, as people who do this professionally, and just to kind of share how our years actually went, putting our money where our mouth is. By the way, Fitz, the one I was going to ask that I forgot, are you still in Scott Fishbowl or no?
No, I made the playoffs, and I was bounced after 1 week. I was 2 points short of the cutoff, but I did not have a good team, and my record was way better than my actual team, and I was probably lucky just to be in the playoffs. How many weeks did you survive?
I'm still in it. I'm in the quarterfinals.
Wow,
yeah,
nice job.
And I've been pushing through despite Drake London not playing for any of these playoff games for me. And I'm keep waiting for him to come back. Obviously, he's not coming back this week, and trying to survive without him.
Be this year.
Yeah. So
the Scott Fish, like I love him, but I always feel like his least, like you need a supercomputer to figure out how this works, especially at this point of the season. I'm gonna draft players I like and then see how I do, and everything else. Like he's probably the most honest dude in the entire industry, but if like he was jerry rigging the playoffs, you would never know. Like you'd just be like, sure, cool, whatever. Yeah. I got bounced.
Yeah, so we'll see how this goes for me. So into the quarterfinals there. Let's go into the show. This is our starts and sits show. We'll also talk some waiver ads off the waiver wire this week, and are we interested in starting them here in the fantasy playoffs? I mean, kind of more pressure on that than usual. And then we'll wrap up with our touchdown calls. As always, let's start with those starting or sitting popular waiver ads. The number one guy I wanted to talk to you guys about, and I'll start with you, Fitz, because I know this is a player that you really liked, as a rookie coming into the league and is now getting some more opportunity here to shine. It's Blake Corum, running back for the Rams, obviously coming off a very big game. Even with Kyren Williams playing, he's coming off a very big game. This offense has been humming outside of that Panthers game. So is Corum somebody that if you picked him up off waivers this week, even with Kyren healthy, you'd be interested in or potentially interested in starting here in the fantasy playoffs?
Blake Corum is good, and he plays in one of the best offenses in the league, but I do think he's probably more of a desperation starter than someone you would want to proactively start this week. The last 2 weeks have been great for him. 19 carries for 209 yards and 3 touchdowns, just routinely averaging 11 yards per carry, and scoring touchdowns on 16% of your carries. Not bad. And pulling something like that off for a third straight week, that would be some real Christmas magic, especially in a pretty tough matchup against the Lions. The last 2 weeks, it was the Cardinals and the Panthers, neither of whom have been especially good against the run. So, yeah, it's going to be harder for Blake Corum to turn 7 to 12 carries into double-digit fantasy points against Detroit, who's given up the 9th fewest rushing yards to running backs and have only allowed 6 touchdown runs to running backs this season. So Corum's usage has been really predictable. Plays right around a third of the Rams' offensive snaps, gets somewhere from 7 to 13 carries a game. That's been pretty much clockwork since about week 7. And, it worked the last couple of weeks. I wouldn't keep betting on that usage to pay off in a tougher matchup.
Jake, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't have much left. Fitz covered it all. I will say this. One of the things I noticed in this is that the Lions have given up as many single-digit performances to any running back on the roster that they faced versus double digits. So to have 2 in the same game, potentially, let alone 1, is a tough, as Fitz brought up, it's one of the tougher matchups. So I wouldn't be banking on it either. Those last 2 weeks, as Fitz said, over 10 yards per carry, actually more like 12. Like, do you really think that's going to happen? Like, is he turning into Devin Achane at this point from 2 years ago? So I'm with Fitz. It's just tough to gamble on somebody only getting 7 to 10 touches and having that a kind of explosiveness in this game specifically. Maybe if it was the Saints again, sure, or the Cardinals, as you said, but I'm with him. I have him as a RB3 fringe play.
Well, speaking of Achane, Jake, the next player on this list, and this is going through kind of in my most popular waiver pickups order, Jalen Wright, and obviously coming off of a very good game that Devon Achane didn't finish. Clearly, this is one where if Achane is playing, you're not going to be nearly as interested in Wright. We won't know till Monday night unless they announce earlier, but that's when the game is played on Achane. So is Jalen Wright somebody that, assuming like if Achane is not on the field, I don't even want to say assuming, but if he's not on the field, is Wright somebody you're interested in?
Interested in the degree of, like you said, so we want to know on Sunday before you have to make all these decisions, because your backup plan in this game is what if if you're waiting for Wright and Achane plays, who do you turn to? Like, is it Gainwell? Like, so that's why you want to make sure. So I'll say that, like, if we knew Achane comes Saturday or before Sunday 1 p.m. kickoff, then I would say Wright would probably be in the RB2 range. But for me, I trust Hampton in a second game back, even though the split went to Vidal. But again, the first game back, I think part of that was the kind of range. And I bring that up to say, like, I have Hampton as a low-end RB2. So he's probably fallen that range, because I do think we finally got what everybody wanted Jalen Wright to be since he was drafted, the number 2 option. But do we really 100% trust that's going to be the case if there is no David Achane? I think we expect it, but What if this is a 50-50 split? What if this is back to the Mostert days where Ollie Gordon is the Mostert and it's a full-on 50-50 split? And then Wright doesn't do much with his first couple of touches and they start to lean to Gordon more. I'm just saying there's all those scenarios there. And the Steelers' run defense has been playing better of late, so it's not just a smash matchup. So a lot of factors in there, but he'd probably be in that fringe RB2 conversation for me because there is risk involved.
Fitz, what do you think?
Yeah, obviously not if Achane is deemed okay and we know he's going to play. I was trying to think of where I would put, because right now I'm ranking it as if Achane is going to play. I think I would have Jalen Wright in sort of the Tony Pollard, Kareem Hunt district, which is like mid-range RB3, right around RB30. Mainly because of what Jake says. Like, I don't trust that it would be the Jalen Wright show like it was last week. And up until last week, I had kind of dismissed Jalen Wright as just being bad. Like, immediately got his job taken over. And I know he was hurt to begin the year, and that's part of the reason why Ollie Gordon was sort of able to pass him on the depth chart. But really, there had been no evidence to this point that Jalen Wright was any good. And I know there were people coming out of college who, I forget who made the comment, like, that he runs like he has a blindfold on or something like that. And but I mean, last week sort of rekindled interest in Jalen Wright. I just don't know if I want to ride that into the fantasy playoffs, even if Achane is out.
One more running back here, Bam Knight. Obviously, Trey Benson. Not that he had looked close to coming back, but he is officially out for the rest of the season. For the Cardinals, they get this tough matchup, Fitz, against the Texans defense. Knight, he's ranked in a similar range to Blake Corum in the consensus rankings. Do you see it similarly, where you're kind of like maybe in a pinch but not trying to start him?
Yeah, I would really be not trying to start him. He's running back 38 for me. And he's the 1A to Michael Carter's 1B, but it's pretty close to 50-50. And like, it's just that the matchup against the Texans is so unappealing to me. Houston has given up the fourth fewest rushing yards to running backs. They've only allowed 3.8 yards per carry to running backs. The Cardinals play the Falcons in week 16. I think Bam Knight will be flex worthy for that game. I just don't think he's flex worthy this week against Houston.
Jake?
Yeah, so one of the things to go further with that about Texans, how bad it is when they have given up fantasy points, it's been at the goal line. So do you think Bam can push one in? Yeah, maybe, because the other side of it is the big games that you've ever seen has been explosive players. I don't know, Bam Knight's kind of explosive, but I think factor both of those in of knowing who Bam Knight is. Like, I want to ask Fitz, why do you love Bam Knight? Just as a joke. I'm at 42.
Lower?
I have him behind Zach Charbonnet in a timeshare. I have him behind Vidal in a timeshare, Gainwell in a timeshare. Like, this is my way of saying I do not want to hinge my fantasy playoffs on Bam Knight.
Yeah. The other thing I didn't even mention is that the Cardinals starting left tackle Paris Johnson is going to be out for this game. I think I would not be surprised at all if the Cardinals scored like 14
It's funny you said that too,
points.
because I saw the news and my mind immediately went to Paris Campbell. I was like, wait, I thought he was, and I saw the Johnson because I just saw Paris and I was like, Paris Campbell.
Yeah.
The guy who fantasy managers have given more second chances than probably any other player in the history of fantasy
football. No more
football.
than Kristen Michael is the king of second chances.
Good point. Or Josh Gordon too, who everyone wanted to keep drafting
one season.
8 years after his last good year.
The one for the Packers. Who was the one for the receiver for the Packers that everybody tried to keep giving another opportunity for? He had like one huge game and then
Jeff Janis?
There you go, Jeff Janis. The Davis Maytech love.
That's right. Davis Maddock did love him.
All right, let's go to plant your flag section here. Jake, we'll start with you. Who are you planting your flag on here in week 15?
Yeah, Fitz and I talked about this on my podcast, which was great guest this week. I don't know if you heard. This guy's pretty good. But yeah, I'm going to go to Christian Watson here, and mostly because I want to admit, and I'm going to say this right now, the risk is like a 4, because we know this. But Christian Watson, not only what he's been doing since he's been healthy with the Packers, since he's come back, but the second part, and we kind of touched on it last week, we did, Fitz and I on the podcast, is I kept saying Jayden Reed when he comes back, the biggest thing about Jayden Reed is they've been without Tucker Kraft and nobody's been filling that void. Like Romeo Doubs is still just Romeo Doubs. Like they really needed Tucker Kraft and what he brings to the offense. And Jayden Reed stepped in and not only looked like Jayden Reed, but he was filling that void of like, and I say void, especially I'm doing this with my hands. It's like that intermediate field to open things up even more for players, even Dobbs downfield, which has been things. So I know people are looking at Surtain and worried about that. And I know the rest of the defense is also really good, but Surtain's not 100% to travel. And then the one thing that we already knew since he came out of college and to this day about Surtain, it doesn't always happen, but big wide receivers with speed is the one thing he can sometimes struggle with because he jams and he jams greatly. But like if you get those hands and get past them, big play opportunity downfield. And it's happened. Alec Pierce did it against him. And I try to remember the other one. Terry McLaurin scored a touchdown, but that wasn't a big play. But all that being said, he can get beat. So I have Christian Watson inside my top 24 wide receivers, and that's telling you I'm plugging in my lineups. I admit the risk is a 4, but Christian Watson is strongly ahead of consensus because I think people are worried about the matchup, but I'm okay trusting him to this point and trusting him in my playoffs.
Fitz, what do you think about Watson?
As a Packer fan, I'm excited that Jake has guaranteed that Christian Watson is going to torch Patrick Surtain Jr. on Sunday. No, I mean... Yeah, it's part of it is whether the Packers are going to be able to hold off Nick Bonito and friends with the Denver pass rush to give Watson the time he needs to break open on those deeper routes that he runs, because he does have a very deep average depth of target. But the Packers offensive line, which has been at times really shaky this season, has looked really good the last couple of weeks against the Lions and Bears. So, there is room for optimism here. And the nice thing about Watson is like you normally only need 1 or 2 big plays out of him to make your day for fantasy. So I'm excited about Jake's optimism.
Yeah, Jake says he's ahead of consensus. So some of these names around consensus for you, Fitz, I want to ask Christian Watson, because we're not talking about any of these names coming up later in the show. Christian Watson or Ladd McConkey, Emeka Egbuka, Juwan Jennings, DK Metcalf. These are the names that are kind of sandwiching him. Would he be ahead of those guys for you, or it's kind of mix and match depending on the player?
He is just behind all of those guys for me, but like they're basically in the same tier. So yeah, and I can't say I'm wildly enthusiastic about any of those guys either. Right now, like I've got Egbuka one spot ahead of Watson, and he's been getting consistently more targets than Watson, but while Watson has been really cashing in on his targets, Egbuka has not at all lately, so maybe I need to rethink that one.
Yeah.
Well, so Worm's not here next week, so you can't laugh at me, but Fitz might. But I'll tell you, I have Watson in front of all those, and I'll give you one more, including Justin Jefferson.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, Jefferson is just like...
Why are we still doing Jefferson? Like, why?
I mean, he's like... We're gonna talk about him later.
Okay, we'll save it.
Yeah, we have him on here later, and I'm curious to hear you go harder on this. But like, it's one of those where it's like similar to Egbuka actually, and that's why we did
his name.
We did Jefferson versus Egbuka last week, but like it was a lot of like we're not seeing it happen, and yet they're still getting ranked inside the top 15 or so. Jefferson is wide receiver 14 this week. Like people are still. He's being ranked in an area of like
we'll
kind of a
we'll talk about it when we get to him.
But yeah, we'll get to that one later. Fitz, who are you planting your flag on?
Stefon Diggs. And the revenge game narrative does get overdone, but I do think a game against the Bills means a little more to Stefon Diggs. Already had a game against his former team in Week 5. Diggs lit up the Bills for 10 catches and 146 yards, both season highs. And now he's coming off 2 pretty quiet games. 2 catches for 20 yards against the Bengals, 3 for 26 against the Giants. I think this is a get-right spot for Diggs.
Jake, what do you think about that?
I'm good with it. I know. I figured he was going to bring up the first matchup too, but like this is the one opportunity still where the Bills have also been vulnerable in this kind of wide receiver. And I know there's a lot of people like narrative wise coming off 2 bad games, like they're going to make it a thing for step. Now, I'm just what Fitz brought up is that there's other narratives, including a game that like Diggs wants to show off, but like it's also about the matchup itself. So I'm with him. I have Diggs inside of my top 24. I actually have Diggs in front of Jefferson as well.
Okay, I was going to ask, that's an interesting one. I was going to ask Diggs or Watson for you, or are you much higher on Watson, Jake?
I have them almost back to back.
Okay.
I go Diggs, DK, Watson, and DK is contingent on like, I want him 100%. Like a DK at less than 100%, and he's falling back. And I obviously, that always has to do with the fact that the matchup should help too.
Today's show is brought to you by our new presenting sponsor, Hard Rock Bet. If you're listening to this podcast, you're probably deep in the stats, injury reports, and matchups. Put your fantasy football knowledge to the test on Hard Rock Bet. New customers can sign up and bet $5 on any game. If it wins, you'll find $150 in bonus bets on top of your winnings stuffed in your stocking. Now that is holiday magic. Not sure what to place your first bet on? Hard Rock Bet just launched a brand new For You page, making it easy to find all your favorite teams, players, and leagues all in one place. The Hard Rock Bet Sportsbook app is the only legal sportsbook for whenever you're in Florida. It's also live in Arizona, Ohio, New Jersey, Indiana, Tennessee, Virginia, Illinois, Colorado, and Michigan. Coming soon to more states too. Plus, Hard Rock Bet offers new promos every single day. So whenever you're listening, just open the app and check out what you've got any day of the week. Download the Hard Rock Bet app and make your first deposit. Guys, let's get into the start-sit player debates here. First player debate at running back, Breece Hall or Ashton Jeanty. Obviously, two names that if you drafted these guys, I think you probably expected to be very clearly starting them here in the fantasy playoffs. But it's maybe not so obvious just giving all the circumstances going around them and how they've been producing here. So I'll start with you, Jake. Breece Hall or Ashton Jeanty, who would you rather start?
Can I take a pass? Like,
no.
I hate this matchup for Jeanty, and just especially with Kenny Pickett. Like, I don't know what's going to happen here, but I will give Breece Hall the slight edge. Unless it's Brady Cook, you might get me to argue back to Jeanty just because of how bad it looked once Cook came into that game. It sounds like Justin Fields is not going to be factored in, missed practice with the knee injury. And for a lot of people that are saying, oh, he didn't even want to take a touch in that game. He was out for that game. Like, it's like the knee issue is is apparently bigger than we think. And maybe he's milking it. Maybe he's just mad or whatever. But the point being is, I don't know that we get Fields. If we get Taylor, it's 100% Breece Hall. If it's no Taylor, then I probably give Jeanty the slight lead, even with Kenny Pickett. Revenge game, Kenny Pickett. You never know.
Yeah. They are back-to-back in ECR, by the way. Ashton Jeanty, RB19. This is in half PPR scoring. RB19 for Jeanty, Fitz, and RB20 for Breece Hall.
Yeah, did you know, Ryan Wormeli, that Ashton Jeanty has averaged 3.5 yards per carry or worse for 8 straight games dating back to October 12th?
I didn't know that, but I might have guessed something near that. It's been quite poor.
3.5 yards per carry. That's pretty bad. Over his last 7 games, Jeanty's high water mark in rushing yardage for a single game is 60 yards. And he has had games with 31, 30, 21, and 7 rushing yards. And Jeanty has 1 touchdown run over his last 7 games. None of this is Jeanty's fault, of course. The Raiders' offensive line is terrible. Certainly didn't help that they lost Colton Miller and Jackson Powers. Jeez, I almost said Austin Powers Johnson. Jackson Powers Johnson
awesome.
To injuries. So at least though Jeanty has been productive as a pass catcher. He's averaged 5 catches over his last 6 games, 28.8 receiving yards, couple of touchdown catches. So he is sort of raising his floor with his work in the passing game. He's doing more as a pass catcher than Hall has, but the Jets' running game has at least been functional with a far better offensive line than the Raiders have. So Hall is running back 13.5 point PPR fantasy points per game since week 8. Tough matchups for both guys, as Jake said. Jeanty getting the Eagles on the road with Kenny Pickett at quarterback, and not an easy matchup for Hall either, facing the Jaguars in Jacksonville, one of the better run defenses in the league. I like Hall a little more this week, but I suspect that Jake and I are going to be in the minority of rankers with this opinion, because Jeanty seems like sort of a sacred cow in ECR. Like, he's always getting ranked higher than he should be, and I admit I've been guilty of that too.
We need the Spider-Man Jeanty pointing at Jefferson meme. That's what we need.
Yes. Jeanty, to your point, Fitz, about the yards per carry, he's only been over at 4 or higher twice all season. Like, not even just this last, 8 games, like you were saying. It was weeks 4 and 5. He was 6.6 yards per attempt and 4.8 yards per attempt. Every other game this season, he has been 3.9 or lower. He has 8 touchdowns in his 13 games, which has, helped give him something of a floor with some of those receiving touchdowns. By the way, before you ask, Jake, I don't know if this will surprise you or not. I've never seen an Austin Powers movie, so go ahead and
doesn't surprise me. I mean, I'll at least give you the pass in the fact, like, your age also.
Yeah,
but I mean,
Unlike Debro, you will give me a pass. Debro never gives me a pass on this stuff, so I
but I mean, if you have something to do in the off season and you enjoy a spoof on 007 movies at all, then you need to watch it.
I like James Bond movies. I like parodies. It would make sense. I just haven't gotten around to it, so I'll put it on the list here. Let's go to another running back debate, guys. How about Omarion Hampton, who you kind of mentioned earlier, Jake, or DeAndre Swift, a couple of guys who have other options in their respective backfields. Hampton obviously coming off of his first game, returning in however many weeks it was, and looked okay. I mean, he looked really bad in pass protection, but he ran okay at times. He obviously caught the touchdown. And then DeAndre Swift has continued to be, him and Monangai in the backfield together. So between Hampton and Swift, I'll start with you on this one, Fitz. Who do you like better?
Swift. Kamani Vidal played more than twice as many snaps as Omarion Hampton in the Chargers' Monday night win over the Eagles. Yes, it was Hampton's first game back from injury, and the scales are going to start tipping back toward Hampton. I think we all believe that. But we probably still have to consider this a split backfield for now. And, oh, by the way, the Chargers' offensive line is terrible. So kind of for the same reason I'm not really excited about starting Ashton Jeanty. I'm not terribly excited to start either Charger running back this week. The Bears also have the split backfield, but they might have the best run blocking offensive line in the league. Like, they're averaging 179 rushing yards a game over their last 8 games. It's going to be bitterly cold here in Chicago on Sunday. I think they said the wind chill is going to be sub-zero. Air temperature of like 10 or 11 degrees. Conditions are probably going to favor a run-heavy approach. I would rather start DeAndre Swift against the Browns, whose run defense mostly good this season, although they somehow managed to make Tony Pollard look like
I was going to bring
Campbell
that up.
last week. Yeah, look up Earl Campbell Worm. He was really good. And so, yeah, I'd much rather play Swift than Hampton in a pretty tough matchup against the Chiefs.
I'm familiar with Earl Campbell at the very least.
Okay, good.
I was gonna ask what you thought of the matchups because, like, on paper neither is good, but the Browns were just torched by Tony Pollard last week. Like, does that change your opinion, Fitz, at all in evaluating the Bears' backfield, or are you looking at that as like just one of the most surprising performances of the season, and you don't want to take anything from it?
I mean, the Browns were really, really tough against the run in the early weeks of the season, and I think they've been just kind of average against the run since then.
We talked about, I had conversations with Erickson early in the year looking way ahead to right now, the fantasy playoff schedule, talking about certain teams. And whenever the Browns came up, I would try to make the point that defense is a lot about effort. Run defense is a lot about effort at times. And if your team is getting beat down all season because the offense is terrible, it doesn't matter how good that defense is. Like, eventually that effort typically starts to wane when you get to December, and maybe it wouldn't look so scary by the time we got to this point. So I'm not saying that'll be how it plays out the next month, but something to keep in mind. Jake, Hampton is ranked ahead of Swift by just 2 spots in ECR. It's RB25 and RB27 respectively. Who do you like better?
I think it's pretty much a toss-up because I have them back-to-back. So I'm going to say if you want to go either way, but I will tell you one that also helps with Fitz in saying that Swift could be the call here. And this was from my write-up this week. So I went since week 8, basically the turn of the season, like now looking at the second half of the season, because if we look over the course of the full season, we know defenses change, injuries, blah, 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 blah. So that's kind of the point that I picked from. But the Browns are only second to the Raiders in run stuff percentage. So that's the worry part of it. I will say that. They're 25.7% of the time. The Raiders are 27.1. That defense, this continues to be good. But here's the flip side of it. Since then, running backs with at least 20 touches, Swift, third lowest in stuffed, 5.5% because of his ability. He gets away from it. The interesting part about it, there's 2 lower that might surprise a lot of people on both of them. One is Keaton Mitchell at 5%. But then, do you guys want, you get one guess since week 8 who has a 0.0 stuff percentage at running back?
I'm not sure I even have a guess. Fitz, what do you think?
He's in a timeshare.
I'll say Kenneth Gainwell.
Chuba Hubbard. Hasn't been stuffed.
I would not have gotten to that as a guess.
Single time since then. But anyway, to the point, Swift's ability to get away from it is why I'm not that concerned about the matchup. To also help, my entire point is helping Fitz's argument with Swift.
Okay. So what would you do if you had this call, Jake, in one of your playoff games? Who do you have?
Swift versus
yeah.
I have them back to back. I'm gonna let my projections make the decision, honestly.
Which is
but I will say this.
Who's slightly higher?
I don't know, because I do it on Thursday. Okay. I will say this. No matter what the projections say, I would actually call Swift the safer play. If I needed the ceiling and maybe they're just give Hampton 18 of the touches and push Vidal completely aside, then I would risk that, because it's a risk, especially with that offensive line.
It does seem like the Chargers are going to want to be run heavier the rest of the season. We saw it on Monday night. That line just cannot protect Justin Herbert. Anything. Yeah, it's a terrible. So unless they want to get Justin Herbert killed, like, they need to be really run heavy the rest of the way.
Yeah. Yep. All right, let's go to some wide receiver debates here. How about the aforementioned Stefon Diggs or Jacoby Meyers? Jake, I'll start with you on this one. Would you rather start Diggs or Myers this week?
This is one I usually say, like, I don't like it. I like both in this situation. Like, Jacoby Meyers, that being said, has been touchdown reliant. So I think that if you look at the two of them, Brian Thomas last week finally looked good. Speaking of looking good, Jayden Reed looking good. We hope Mike Evans, by the time people are watching this, they're probably already seen Mike Evans. We hope these wide receivers look good coming back. But Brian Thomas looked good enough to say, like, maybe there's a little slight concern with Jacoby Meyers, and it's the Jets. So assumably it's the Jaguars. We assume that it will be a lot of Travis Etienne. They don't need to pass a ton. So there's another one. You keep picking my back-to-back guys. So the slight lean to Diggs for ceiling, but Jacoby Meyers, I would want to get both of them. Like, again, I'd put both of them in my lineup before I put Justin Jefferson in my lineup. I mean, you're not going to have any questions left by the time I get to Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, I'll run out of players to ask about. Fitz, what do you think? Obviously, Diggs is a guy that you like. You're planting your flag on him, but I know you have liked Jacoby Meyers too. So who do you like better this week? And by the way, in ECR, it is Meyers at wide receiver 19 and Stefon Diggs at wide receiver 21.
Yeah, so I've got Meyers at wide receiver 19 also, but I have Diggs at wide receiver 15. He is my flag plant guy. It's great how well Jacoby Meyers has fit in with the Jaguars. It has been a little touchdown dependent, which is funny that we're saying that in connection with Jacoby Meyers, the guy who used to be incapable of scoring touchdowns back in his Patriots days. But yeah, I think if you are considering benching either of these guys for your playoff matchup, you have a really, really good team.
Yeah, and I think Meyers is interesting because it's very possible that he was a depth pickup, right? Like, and at this point, you might have been starting him, but if you have like a lot of really good players that you drafted early, like he was taken in a range where he could easily have, you would have expected him to be, your wide receiver 5 or whatever, and you might have to make a decision like this, so, even though they're both ranked inside the top 21 in ECR. So that's how those guys see it. Let's go to Terry McLaurin or Wan'Dale Robinson. We haven't really talked about McLaurin on the show because he missed so much time, and obviously his quarterback has missed time. It just hasn't been a name that's come up for a variety of reasons. Wan'Dale has come up before. These guys are also back-to-back, Jake, in ECR. Terry McLaurin is wide receiver 16. Wan'Dale is wide receiver 17 in ECR, playing against each other's teams in this game. Who do you prefer?
Terry McLaurin. This one I actually feel strongly about, and it goes back to what I would have done the same thing last week. I didn't know the Commanders were going to be malpractice and putting Jaden Daniels out there when he fell on his arm and left the game. Like, he wasn't even tackled or fallen on. He just fell on his arm as he got pushed down, and that's it. That's all it took. But I'm going to Terry McLaurin because Marcus Mariota did the same thing I expect Daniels to do, is now that McLaurin is 100%, is to treat him like what we know McLaurin is. And he's going against the Giants secondary. If you can give me wide receivers against the Giants secondary, a lot of times I'm going to pick them. And I like Wan'Dale Robinson, and we hope this can be a shootout. But the one thing about Jackson Dart is he continues to be low passing volume, low passing yards. A lot of times it involves Wan'Dale Robinson, admittedly. But if you look at it, more games under 100 yards than 200 plus yards. And that 200 plus yards, to even say like, well, when he got injured, that was one of the games he threw for 200 yards is when he got injured in that game against the Bears. So I'm just saying, like, when you talk about the volume between the two of them, I'm going to take the Marcus Mariota volume against the Giants versus the Jackson Dart one. Another one where I like both, but this is the biggest gap we have so far. I have Terry McLaurin inside my top 15.
Okay. Fitz, do you see this as close, or do you also have a gap here?
No, I see it as close, and I've actually got Wan'Dale ranked a little higher. Jake makes some really good points for McLaurin. I might have to reconsider my ranking of him. I just feel...
Hey, you've been killing wide receivers this year, so like I'm more likely to come your side than the other way around.
Yeah, I mean, what I looked at with this was just sort of the target volume, and obviously McLaurin, with all the time he's missed, like, we can't get a really good read there, although Mariota certainly peppered him the last time we saw Mariota and McLaurin play together. I think 14 targets for Scary Terry. But Wan'Dale, I just feel like the target volume is very secure. He's averaging 8.5 targets a game this season, 10.6 over his last 5 games, with no fewer than 8 targets in any game over that span. So the usage has just been really steady for Wan'Dale. I guess that's why I've got him ranked a smidge higher. But this is a start-sit decision. If I had this one, I would be agonizing over right up until kickoff on Sunday.
I think this is for you, Fitz. I think this comes down to more of my love of McLaurin versus my hate for Wan'Dale, to be clear.
Yeah. I mean, I used to be sort of anti-Wan'Dale too. He's finally won me over. I used to be like, okay, why do people give this guy snaps? But I know just the fact that he was able to make Russell Wilson look good earlier this season, I guess, was kind of what won me over. That's
also fair.
Would you, Jake, start either of these two or Michael Wilson, who has been awesome, but like I'm terrified of this matchup against Houston. Like I am just fading very heavily everybody in this passing game besides Trey McBride. Do you see it that way, or would you just say like he's been so good you have to start him over either a McLaurin or a Wan'Dale?
So, it is one, and it's a terrifying matchup that we've been brought up a lot. And I will say that I would still go McLaurin, but then I go Michael Wilson, then Wan'Dale. They're all kind of in a similar range, but that's the order I would go in, mostly because that even as bad as this is, and I know they just made Patrick Mahomes look miserable, but we still know Brissett's throwing it 40-plus times, and the Texans have given up 20-plus completions, which isn't a huge number, but when we know that 50% of that's going to be actually probably 80%. I was going to say 50% was probably Wilson. We'll say 80% is Wilson and McBride in a single game. Then you can still get 6-7 completions out of it to Michael Wilson.
Do you feel the same, Fitz?
Yeah, I have these 3 guys grouped together. This would be a really difficult decision. Same thing. I mean, we can, I guess
Here's one that's not in the list.
Go ahead.
Non-100% Olave or Michael Wilson.
It's Olave for me.
Okay. Olave in ECR is actually, so it's Terry McLaurin at wide receiver 16, Wan'Dale at wide receiver 17. Olave is wide receiver 15, so he's right, on the other side of this
kind of in that group.
So
were you thinking about that? Because you smirked when I asked that. Were you thinking about putting Olave in the list?
I did consider Olave. Yeah, I did. I usually look at your guys' rankings before doing this, and then this week I didn't. I just put it together myself. So I was wondering how it was going to come out in terms of like, are you guys going to think these are close, or is this going to be like, what? These are stupid questions. These are super easy. So I'm glad that there's been some disagreement here with these. But yeah, I did consider Olave too. All right, let's get to some more rapid fire start sit decisions here. We'll go back to the running backs. How about Zach Charbonnet or Kenneth Gainwell? Another couple of kind of split backfields here. Gainwell obviously not playing till Monday night, but Charbonnet against the Colts or Gainwell against the Dolphins, Fitz?
Close call. Charbonnet by a nose. You'd think that with the Seahawks favored by 13.5 points at home against the Colts, whose season is going up in smoke, that it's going to be a real run-friendly game script for the Seahawks, who, as it is, are the only NFL team that has had more running plays than passing plays this year. So maybe both Zach Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker can eat for a change.
Yeah, we on the predictions show with Erickson earlier this week, for anybody who missed it, one of my predictions was that the Seattle defense was going to win matchups this week. They're going to score over 20 points was my prediction. And we are supposed to come up with a prop that goes along with our predictions. Normally it's related to the player we picked. I didn't want to do like a defensive prop. So my prop was also a Charbonnet and anytime touchdown, because I just think they're going to be up by so much that they're going to be running the ball a lot. Charbonnet will get an opportunity to score at least one touchdown.
Promising they're going to score more points than they scored against Max Brosmer and the Vikings a couple of weeks ago when they hit 30?
I'm not going to promise that, but I wouldn't be surprised if they challenge it, is what I'll say. Charbonnet, by the way, is RB40 in ECR. Gainwell, RB39, so another two that are back-to-back by consensus. Jake, who do you prefer?
Yeah, first of all, I will not stand for this Phillip Rivers slander. I don't know what you guys are doing. I will say I am terrified this dude gets tackled once and then disappears for the rest of the game. And like, we need the Madden cart to come out and crash through players just to get to him. Like, remember, actually, you probably don't get that reference, Worm.
I get it.
But yeah, thank you. Another old man reference there. But I will say it's close, but I'm kind of with Fitz on this with the Charbonnet. Like, the split continues to be frustrating. Kenneth Walker 2 weeks ago was doing well through the 3 quarters and then didn't touch the ball in the fourth. That game was out of hand, but he was doing well. It was not like amazing. And then last week we get back and forth, and we know that they play similar roles, Charbonnet and Gainwell, at the goal line, but who's likely to get more touches overall, whether or not Phillip Rivers has a good game in his first game back since forever, it's still going to be Charbonnet. It's close, but I agree with Fitz, Charbonnet.
My favorite Phillip Rivers stat is that he went 0-4 lifetime against the Maryland Terrapins in college. So my team was something he couldn't crack the code of the Terps. So
that's storied NC State Maryland rivalry.
Exactly. Back when
I
they were.
love the
in
fact
the
that like I tweeted it out because Jacob Robinson was asking me about Phillip Rivers' return, Jacob at the Athletic, and as he was doing, he's like, I can't believe he's this old, and it immediately made me think about his oldest kid. And like as the news broke, I was like, by the way, his oldest child is born in the same year and older than the quarterback he's replacing in Riley Leonard. And then multiple people ended up tweeting out the same thing. But that's the most insane stat to me, that his oldest child is older than the quarterback that he's replacing.
I think he's a grandfather, right? Like you could even just say that. Like there's a
Do
grandfather
you know the
playing
grandfather?
in the NFL.
There's only been 2 grandfathers quarterbacks to play in the NFL.
I don't know the other one.
Brett Favre.
Oh, really?
It is Favre.
I did not know that.
Very last season, they had the grandkid.
Oh, interesting. Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, that's remarkable. All right. Speaking of that Colts game, let's go to a wide receiver here. Michael Pittman or Brian Thomas Jr. You know, this is really just like risk tolerance, I guess, Jake. Like, who are you willing to kind of stomach starting given just everything? They are, again, back-to-back in ECR. Brian Thomas Jr., wide receiver 30. Michael Pittman Jr. is wide receiver 31.
Yeah, I have a little bit bigger gap on that because of the risk tolerance. And then the whole, I actually talked about this with Fitz too. It's like the assumption with Phillip Rivers is, he's going to love his tight end. And for his career, he's been pretty league average targeting tight ends. He has some peak seasons where he's hit like 30% and some where he's only been 15% because talent matters. But what does he have? He has one of the better talents at tight end. And at this point, he's always had a decent, it's like Derek Carr-ish arm where he will throw downfield, but his real strength is the intermediate game. And now at 44, do we really think there's much of an arm left? So I'm bringing that up to say is I do think that the majority of his volume is probably going to be handing it off to Jonathan Taylor, but also Tyler Warren and even Josh Downs to a bit where Alec Pierce might get hurt. And then Michael Pittman also might get hurt a little bit. So the fact that Brian Thomas looked healthy last week, I think that I'm going to lean to Brian Thomas getting back. Like if we knew Brian Thomas was 100% when we were having this conversation in week 1, Brian Thomas was a wide receiver 1. So I think him getting back to that similar to Terry McLaurin, but I do have him as a wide receiver 2 because it's still the risk of this entire offense and Trevor Lawrence not targeting Brian Thomas heavily. But I think we had that same concern with Pittman. So I'll give Thomas the edge.
Fitz, how do you see it?
Same, BTJ. I thought he looked more like the 2024 Brian Thomas Jr. last week against the Colts, and now he gets a friendly matchup with the Jets. I'm glad Jake feels the same way because I think I've got Thomas.
Oh, you can't see my football. It's BT7, by the way. That's how he signs his merchandise. So it's BT7, not BTJ. Get it right.
Nice. BT7. So, yeah, I mean, I think I'm like 3 or 4 spots above ECR and putting him at wide receiver 25. So good to hear you have him range. In wide receiver 24 range. Yeah, I don't want to play Colts pass catchers this week. Phillip Rivers, great story. I love that he's coming back, but the dude hasn't played football since 2020, and now they're going to throw him out there against the Seahawks. Like, I can't wait to see what this looks like, but I do not want to stake my fantasy fortunes on a quarterback who's been retired for 5 years going against one of the best pass defenses in the league. And by the way, about that tight end thing, Jake, it's like, yeah, Phillip Rivers likes his tight ends. Oh, really? He thinks throwing at Antonio Gates is like plus EV? Yeah, I mean, but that's
shocker.
That all gets overdone. And then, someone, he hates his tight ends. Well, dude, Tyler Conklin was his best tight end. So it kind of depends on the personnel in a lot of these
Lamar
situations.
Jackson has the highest mark of throwing to the tight ends for the last 20 years. Oh, by the way, it just happened to be when he threw to Mark Andrews 42% of the time that one year. Shocker. Like, so it's, you got to, as Fitz said, you got to bring context into this. By the way, is this going to be the most watched 4 p.m. game in like the entire season? Just because everybody's going to be tuning in to see Phillip Rivers?
Will be I bet it'll be the most watched game with a 13.5 point spread of the entire season.
I'll give you that.
For sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, then I guess, will it beat Lions Rams is the big question.
I don't think so. But
Packers Broncos is also
there's some good
conference
matchups
leaders
in the slate.
That's a good point too.
But it'll have eyes on it for sure. All right, let's get to some flexes. Kenneth Walker or Justin Jefferson. Let's hear it, Jake.
Kenneth Walker. And I don't even want to pick Kenneth Walker because every single week is a split. Here, I will say this. Despite what Justin Jefferson's been, which is a big fat doo-doo for most of the season, basically since he lost Carson Wentz, can we do the one arm man? Like to just throw him out there, Carson Wentz with one arm and get him back for Justin Jefferson? But all that being said, Justin Jefferson's done nothing. And with the thing I was about to say before, like I said, we'll save it. If his name was Justin McNichols, like nobody would care. He would be on waiver wire. And he'd be waiver wire forgotten at this point. Like that's how bad it's been. But it's the issue of trying to get out of our minds is like who we know. It's the Christian Watson thing. Like we were so annoyed with him for 2 years that nobody wanted to trust him because what we know Justin Jefferson. We know he's done it with Nick Mullins and Carson Wentz. So why can't he do it with JJ McCarthy? And nobody wants to have him on his bench and watch him go off for 25 points. But it's not happening. It hasn't happened. Like we've made that argument for how many weeks now? 7, 8. So I'm going with Kenneth Walker unless I need a home run play. And I think that's where Jefferson is now at this point. We've been waiting, arguing that he should be in lineups similar to Jeanty. And he's basically fallen into you're going to possibly get 5. There's still the Jefferson potential to get a 25, but that's who he is now. So if you need the ceiling, it's Jefferson. But if you need the safe play, it's Kenneth Walker, because also he's not even getting targeted 20% of the time, under 20%, 14, 15% of the time. So it's not the Ibuka argument. He's just not even getting targets.
Fitz?
Yeah, I'm totally with Jake. Kenneth Walker. Again, run-friendly game script coming for Seattle, I think. And I've decided I don't want to go down with the Titanic on Jefferson anymore. I'm going to be like the Billy Zane character, pushing my way past the women and children as I head for the lifeboats. Jefferson,
Billy Zane reference.
wide receiver 33 in fantasy points per game this season. Jefferson is in half-point PPR, but since week 10, wide receiver 74 in fantasy points per game, trailing such luminaries as Xavier Legette, Tim Patrick, Andre Iosivas. Kenneth Walker, please.
I will say, Fitz, you should, as impassioned as I was, that should have changed your opinion, right? Like, should have been like, I'm getting off this. This is going to be Jefferson's going to finally blow up.
I liked I saw the meme that somebody put out there. I forget who it was, but it was like the Anakin talking to Padme, and he's like, JJ McCarthy finally had a great game against a terrible Commanders defense, and Padme is like, oh, so Justin Jefferson finally bounced back, right? And he just does the stare like, Justin Jefferson bounced back, right? Like, and it is crazy that like JJ finally has a good game, and it's 4 targets, 2 catches, 11 yards for his best receiver. So it just feels very, very
jokes aside, that's what we knew about McCarthy coming out of college is he's not very anticipatory yet. So when you have defenses spending that much attention on Jefferson, he has to anticipate where Jefferson's going to be and when the window is going to pop up. And he's not. He's waiting. And at that point, he's just covered, full-on coverage, or he's thrown into the defenders. So it's just not there yet. McCarthy can get better, but it's just not there yet.
Let's do another flex here. How about Kyle Monangai or Michael Wilson, who we talked about a little bit earlier? Fitz, I'll start with you on this one. Who would you rather start here, Wilson against the Texans or Monangai against the Browns?
If Marvin Harrison Jr. is out and he was not practicing as of Wednesday, I'll take Wilson here. He's had 18, 15, and 16 targets in the 3 games Marvin Harrison Jr. has missed, and he's had 10 or more catches and 118 or more yards in all of them. Now, I don't expect those kind of numbers against the Texans because that is one nasty defense, but I'm willing to chase that sort of target volume, even if it's into a burning building against this defense.
Jake, what do you think?
It's dark there. I'm with you on this mostly because to go back to my point about the stuff percentage is where Monangai has really been also making his hay is getting those touchdowns too, that where they turn away from Swift at the goal line. So it's kind of that similar argument we had before with facing the Lions is like, do you really want to take the Corum and hope for the touchdown, the second piece? Monangai's look great, and he does get into space, and he does have that ability, but that's what my point is they also turned him at the goal line, so it's like, does he get one in? And if not, Yeah, this is a full-on Wilson. Like, even if he gets the touchdown, it should probably be a very close score between the two. But without it, it's probably going to be a huge gap, even with the terrible matchup.
Let's go to another flex here. Courtland Sutton or Jalen Warren? Jake, who do you like better, Sutton or Warren?
Oh, this is a tough one for me. So, Courtland Sutton, since week 7, 1 double-digit score. It's been bad, and it's the part of it's the schedule, which includes this week. Like, no team had a worse schedule for wide receivers, and also quarterbacks included, including the past 2 weeks, and now the final 3 weeks. The Denver Broncos have one of the worst, and they just don't need to go to Courtland Sutton. But I will say, I skew a little bit towards Warren, but it's much closer than it was last night now knowing Patrick Bryant is out. So Pat Bryant is out for this game, which puts Troy Franklin back into play. But the fact that you just take one more piece away from Bo Nix, and he could scramble a ton in this game. It's not a great matchup, as we all know, but it could be a situation where maybe Sutton finds his way into the end zone. And that's the one thing that Warren's been lacking because they turned to Kenneth Gainwell. So it's close. But this is another one, not to sound like I'm straddling the fence, but if I just want to guarantee myself points, it is 100% Warren. If I need to shoot for that ceiling, it's going to be Sutton.
Fitz?
Yeah, I'm going to follow the Bob Harris rule of flex decisions here. When in doubt, go with the running back over the receiver.
There you go. Yeah.
Not that I'm necessarily in doubt here. I mean, the Patrick Bryant thing does close the gap a little bit, but Warren has been one of the most stable assets in fantasy this year. He hasn't had a lot of really big games, but he hasn't laid many eggs either. He's averaging 12 half-point PPR fantasy points per game, which puts him at running back 22 in per-game fantasy scoring. His single-game high this season is 17.8. His lowest total is 7.3. Like, if that's your lowest total in 13 games, you're doing pretty well. That's a pretty stable floor. So Sutton, meanwhile, has had 3 games this season where he's finished with fewer than 4 fantasy points. He's kind of been all over the place, and not an easy matchup with the Packers this week.
One more flex here. Tony Pollard coming off of this shocking, insane game. Or Jordan Addison. We just talked about his teammate, of course, in Minnesota. Addison or Pollard this week, Fitz?
Yeah, I don't want to seem like I'm point chasing with Pollard, but I'm going with Pollard and I'm following the volume. Like, he's had double-digit carries in all but 1 game this season, and he averages about 2 catches a game. So give me that over J.J. McCarthy's number 2 receiver.
What do you think, Jake?
I mean, arguably his number 1 wideout ahead of Justin Jefferson, but also T.J. Hawkinson involved. So I will say Tony Pollard, his first double-digit score since week 5. Also, by the way, you want to know how many goal line carries he has on the year? A whopping 4. So, and neither of those came last week with those touchdowns. All that being said, I just wanted to present that to say I actually agree with Fitz on this one because I don't love Tony Pollard. Actually, I'm one of the biggest haters of Tony Pollard. Haters, I put that on quote because I don't hate the guy, but haters in fantasy. Like, I have Pollard nowhere. I told people not to draft him. And yet, in this scenario specifically, Worm, you got me to pick Tony Pollard. I don't know if you did it on purpose. I don't want to do it, but you got me to pick him.
Should I have asked about J.J. McCarthy's real number 1 target, Josh Oliver?
Well, that's the other part of it too, is they've been running a lot more 2 and 3 tight end sets. That's actually, that last game was it was the heaviest 2 and 3 tight end get, and maybe they're following the Rams suit of recent bias, and maybe like that's the thing is, hey, let's copy where Kevin O'Connell came from, and like kind of maybe that helps McCarthy, and it did, at least for 1 game.
Mm-hmm. Our playoffs started last week in the Fantasy Pros content team league, and I was playing Joe Pisapia, and I had Justin Jefferson on that team, and like, when I'm watching Josh Oliver catch his 2nd touchdown pass, rolling my eyes.
I got a bye in that league, which I needed because I would have been outscored by like the entire league. My team had a terrible week, but thankfully I was on bye, so it didn't matter. Guys were, resting up for me there. Let's go to the quarterback here for start-sit decision. How about Jordan Love or Sam Darnold? Jake, I'll start with you on this one. Love or Darnold? And to give you the ECR, Darnold is QB 15, Love is QB 16.
Yeah, I know this is one probably people are dealing with because a lot of quarterback situations. I'm going to go with Love, mostly because I know the matchup is really bad. But he looks like that Love that hot stretch from last year and the hot stretch the year before that. And I know that stretch can end at any point, and it is the Broncos, and it is a very tough matchup. But Darnold's early season to mid-season reliance, you know what, similar to Jordan Love's stretch, had been on touchdown efficiency. And I'm not saying he can't get back to it, but we've been talking about this game a lot. Does this need to be a Darnold game where he even throws 30 times, which is something that hasn't happened a lot of times this year? So maybe he gets 2 touchdowns on his 15 completions, and this looks dumb at the end of the day. But I just don't know that they need a ton of Darnold in this game. I don't know this is a game where the Seahawks are ever going to be playing from behind at any point. So I'm going to give Jordan Love the slight edge. To give you an idea, I have Love at 13 and Darnold at 15.
Okay. Fitz?
Jake just underscored my main concern about Darnold is the passing volume. Run-heavy team to begin with, and they're big favorites against Indy. If Indy can't push Seattle, Darnold could very easily wind up with like 20 to 23 pass attempts in this game. But I still have him ranked just ahead of Jordan Love because I'm terrified of this matchup against the Broncos. And
you pulled a me on me.
Yeah, I mean, so Love has made a lot of really big plays. He's hit some big ones the last 2 weeks against the Bears and the Lions. But like the Lions have given up the second most pass plays of 20 or more yards this season. The Bears the third most. Denver's given up the fifth fewest. Like it's hard to come by those big plays when you are closing in on the quarterback so quickly, as that Denver pass rush does that leads the league in sacks and pressure rate. So a little worried that the big plays might not be there for Love this week. I'll take Darnold even with the concerns about his passing volume.
Let's go to the tight end one here. How about Mark Andrews or Colston Loveland? Fitz, I'll start with you here. Andrews or Loveland?
It's Andrews against the Bengals. Yeah, I mean, like,
he's been so bad lately. I wanted, when I was putting this together, I was like, I'm going to talk about Andrews because he has not been good, but he gets the Bengals, and I need to hear their opinion on this. I mean, because he just played the Bengals 2 weeks ago, and he was tight end 17. He had 4 for 47, no touchdown. Like, it was a nothing burger game. So I knew I wanted to include Andrews, and then the second step was just figuring out who to put him against. But, you know, go ahead, Fitz. I wanted to kind of clarify my mindset here. It's really more about just like, where do we have Andrews this week?
Yeah, I do wish there wasn't a second tight end that might be the one to have the big game. But someone's going to have a big game against the Bengals, whether it's Andrews or Likely, and not out of the question that it's both. Cincinnati's given up 1,258 receiving yards to tight ends. No other team has allowed more than 933 yards to tight ends. Bengals have given up 15 touchdown catches to tight end. No other team has given up more than 9. I don't want to bench a tight end against the Bengals.
He, just for the record, and I'll say this before throwing it to Jake, outside of the Detroit game, which was back in week 3, Mark Andrews' best game of the season was against the Bengals 2 weeks ago. But again, it was 47 receiving yards. It's his next highest his third highest total in the season is 34 receiving yards, and he only has 5 touchdowns on the year. Just like has not been there. And the last touchdown was back in week 10. So Jake, who do you like? I mean, I'm assuming you like Andrews better, but tell me a little bit about why.
Well, so I was going to say, to talk about this game specifically, the list of teams to fail to have a tight end score double digits against the Ravens. You ready for this list? Jaguars in week 2, Broncos in week 4. I'm done. That was it. That was the entire list. And by the way, they've actually given up 2 games with double digits to 2 tight ends. The Steelers and the Bills both had 2 tight ends put up double-digit scores against them. So, yeah, Likely could have the bigger score. Likely has the bigger score. Because the thing with the Likely situation, somebody asked me on the Discord at The Athletic this morning, is you know what he's doing because this is your team, Worm. He's kind of filling the DeAndre Hopkins role that they want him to be, but also with Rashad Bateman being banged up. He's essentially like the tight end 2/wide receiver 2. And that's kind of who he's been, because Isaiah Likely is also not the truest tight end in the world. And they're taking advantage of that. It's almost like if you threw Kyle Pitts, but actually a Kyle Pitts who can separate onto the onto the Ravens. So I'm saying all to say there is the huge risk here. I just don't want to start any Bears. And I don't want to start any Bears, especially in this matchup. I don't want to start any Bears because Caleb Williams is not throwing a ton because they don't need him to. And that's even with potentially no Odunze. So I am going Mark Andrews, mostly just because I hope he gets that touchdown, which is, I think, the same thing we kind of hope for Colston Loveland when that many people are involved. So I'm just going to take the matchup, especially in this one.
Here's what I'll say about Mark Andrews.
Did it make you feel better?
I was gonna say, he had a 35-yard rushing touchdown against the Browns. That very fluky, fun, fake tush push play they ran. 35 yards rushing touchdown. That play alone would be his third best yardage game of the season.
Do you like Mark Andrews or not?
I like the guy. He's a great, representative in the community. He's going to be a Ravens Ring of Honor player. They just extended him for some reason. He just has not been productive, and he hasn't been getting the touchdowns to make up for the lack of yardage. And I mean, the whole offense has just been so broken for so much of this season. And he has also not really done his. I mean, he's even knocking Lamar should have had the go-ahead touchdown pass against the Steelers, and it was going to Hopkins, and Andrews knocked it down. I don't know if you guys saw this angle. Hopkins was wide open, that one that Andrews dropped behind Andrews. That wasn't even
flashed
going to
in front of him. Yeah, that was bad.
It's been
Lamar
a tough watch.
Put his hands on his helmet I can't believe he just did that.
Basically, since the drop to lose to the Bills in the playoffs last year, it's nothing right. Nothing has gone right for Mark Andrews, it feels like. So, I just get nervous about that, even against the Bengals. You can say goodbye to start-sit dilemmas with Fantasy Pros Start-Sit Assistant. Within seconds, you'll know exactly who to play for optimal results each and every week. Leveraging insights from numerous experts, the Start-Sit Assistant aligns your lineup decisions with the top minds in fantasy football, giving you a competitive edge. Maximize your lineup's potential with just a few clicks. Head to fantasypros.com/myplaybook or download the Fantasy Pros app and make winning decisions in no time. Let's get to our touchdown calls for the week. But first, join our free touchdown calls contest in the Fantasy Pros Discord. Each week, pick 4 players you think will score with a bonus flex worth double. Weekly winners get a $25 Fantasy Pros gift card, and the season champ takes home a signed Bijan Robinson jersey. Play now by going to fantasypros.com/chat and heading to the touchdown calls channel. I am on running back this week. I will go with Travis Etienne. He has been scoring touchdowns at 2 last week. Looks like it could be a real league winner here in the last month of the season for the Jags. So I will take ETN here. I've been kind of trying to take lower ranked guys lately. I'm going with somebody that's ranked inside the top 12 at their position. I'm going with Travis Etienne. Jake, you are on receivers this week.
Yeah, and honestly, this doesn't feel like the layup people might think by the name, and that's why I wanted to take it, because I could have gone super layup, but I'm going to make this a little bit difficult. Whether or not CeeDee Lamb plays, I'm going with George Pickens, and I'm not going with the matchup because the Vikings, by the way, I was just looking at the last time they gave up a touchdown to a wide receiver, week 9, just Jameson Williams. Wow. That's the last time they've done it. Yeah, that's including the Ravens, the Bears, the Packers, the Seahawks, and then, of course, that debacle last week where we rolled out Jaden Daniels for whatever reason. So it's not an easy matchup. It's kind of funny how that defense, every single year, it seems to go through ebbs and flows. It's starts super hot, and then people figure it out in the middle of the season, and then he adjusts back, and then all of a sudden the Vikings defense is good again. They're on the good side of things, but I think that George Pickens and Dak Prescott and this team is going to be looking to pass and get Pickens back on track, who also, by the way, we talk about lost plays, would have had over 100 yards and a touchdown in that game last week if not for PI and that bad play between those two alone. So I'm going with Pickens, whether or not CeeDee Lamb plays. I want to see him get back in the end zone.
ETN for me, Pickens for Jake. Fitz, who are you taking at tight end?
Harold Fannin Jr. He's had a touchdown catch in 2 straight games. He makes it 3 in a row this week against the Bears.
Where's Fannin for you in Dynasty, Fitz?
Oh, in Dynasty?
At tight end alone? This is what your question
is. Yeah, tight end ranking in Dynasty, yeah.
I think I've got him
Would you rather him or Gadsden? Because Gadsden had elevated to the top 5 and then has really just not done anything since that hot couple of weeks.
That comes down to, I know because Fitz is looking, so I'll jump in. That comes down to what are you picking your poison for the future? Because it's Herbert. It's Herbert and Gadsden, and then they're probably going to have a big question. Keenan Allen's probably gone again. But now you come down to Fannin. Is it Sanders next year? Do they go right back to the well of trying to make Watson a thing? Do they draft another quarterback again? So it kind of comes down to, which way, if you wanted to argue for either Fitz, I would put them back to back at this point with Gadsden directly in front of them.
I've got a back to back. I've got Fannin 1 spot higher.
And I'm okay with that.
They're both in tier 2. Close. Tier 2 is very big in our consensus dynasty rankings. It's tight end 4 to tight end 11, and they're both in the back half of that range in consensus. So.
Who's right behind them?
Kyle Pitts is the top tier 3. Fannin's the last name in tier 2. Pitts is the top name in tier 3. Okay. Ferguson is between the two, actually. It goes Gadsden, then Ferguson, then Fannin.
I would take both over Ferguson at this point.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, there's just the age difference there alone. So
yeah.
All right, ETN, Pickens, and Fannin are our picks. Dominate your fantasy football league with Fantasy Pros Premium, now available free for 6 months when you deposit and place your first wager on one of our partner sportsbooks. This is the easiest way to get full access to our top fantasy tools all season long. Go to fantasypros.com/premium to get started. Best of luck here in the fantasy playoffs in Week 15 and beyond. For Jake and Fitz, I'm Ryan Wormeli. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you again next time.